The Forsaken Heir. Episode 94. For ordinary people, 2 or 3 billion is indeed a sky-high price, but for Watanabe, it is only 1%, or 2% of all his assets. Let any person who loses his male prowess spend 1% or 2% of his total assets to regain the coveted ability, I believe that no man in the world will refuse. Watanabe was also very excited at this time, and blurted out, "Mr. Wade, don't know how long I can maintain this ability." Charlie smiled slightly, "It must be enough to maintain for 20 years. By that time, you are nearly 70 years old, and you can be considered old and healthy. If you maintain yourself properly, it may not be impossible to maintain it to your 70s. Watanabe's face flushed with excitement, his fists clenched, and his voice was a little trembling and said, 20 years. I dare not even dream of this. It's great, really great. Takehiko on the side said, "Shineway, since Mr. Wade has helped you make up for your shortcomings, let Nanako bring Miss Song back. You can sign the contract first." Yes. Watanabe said without hesitation, "Sign. Must sign." Takehiko Ito nodded, took out his cell phone, called Nanako, and said, "Nanako, you and Miss Song will come back. We have to have dinner." "Okay, father." Not long after, Nanako walked back with Warnya. At this time, Warnya was still holding a small cocky milk dog in her arms. The puppy was crawling around in her arms at this time, appearing to be very intimate with her. Nanako Ito smiled and said, "Xiaoyu and Sister Warnya are very fond of each other, and have been stuck to each other, so Sister Warnya wants to take it back to Oris Hill." Warnya caressed the little milk dog in her arms lovingly and said to Charlie, "Master, Xiaoyu is a little girl, she seems to like me very much, and I like her very much, so I want to take her back to China. Don't know if it's inconvenient." Charlie smiled and said, "What's inconvenient? We 2 big living people can smuggle back, not to mention a little milk dog. The space on the boat is very large, I am afraid that 100 dogs can be held." Takehiko also nodded again and again, and said with a smile, "The boat I prepared for the 2 is indeed very large, and dozens of people are not even enough." Warnya was overjoyed, and smiled softly, "Then I will take Xiaohu back." Nanako Ito hurriedly said, "Sister Warnya, I will ask someone to prepare some dog food for you. At night, you and Master can take it directly on the boat." Warnya nodded and thanked, "Thank you so much Nanako." Nanako Ito blinked and smiled, "Sister Warnya, don't be so polite." Warnya said, "Xiaoyu is leaving with me, would you miss it?" Nanako quietly glanced at Charlie's face, and said with a smile, "If I want to see it, I will come to Oris Hill, and I can also see my sister and master." In fact, it was Charlie that Nanako wanted to see most. However, she knew very well in her heart that Charlie was a married man after all, and he travelled all the way to see what he said. Therefore, when Warnya takes the puppy to Oris Hill, she can at least borrow the reason to see Charlie in Oris Hill. Although this rhetoric is more or less trivial, at least it can be regarded as not inappropriate. Warnya was also aware of it at this time, and she couldn't help sighing. Nanako, such a tender little girl, was completely captured by Master. "I really don't know how Master will pay these peach blossom debts in the future. At this moment, she felt a little bit of distress for Nanako, and also a little distressed for herself. Although the two had just met for a while, deep in her heart, she felt a real pity for the same illness. At this time, Watanabe immediately said to Warnya with a flat face, "Miss Song, Mr. Wade had a deep chat with me just now, and I also met Mr. Wade at once, so I decided to readjust our contract terms." Warnya was a little surprised, and hurriedly asked, "Mr. Watanabe, how are you going to adjust?" Watanabe said with a smile, "In this way, both of us will invest in a ratio of 5-5, but in terms of the equity allocation, your company holds 60% of the shares and our Nippon Steel holds 40%. Warnya was immediately stunned. She wondered, what is the operation of Watanabe? Why did he give up 10% of the shares all at once? The next moment, she immediately looked at Charlie and told her instinctively that it must have been during the time she left with Nanako. Charlie had regained this condition with Watanabe for herself. She was shocked in her heart. What method did Master use to get Watanabe to make such a big concession? In this way, would Master owe Watanabe a favor to me? Thinking of this, Warnya felt a little panic. She didn't actually think about taking advantage of Nippon Steel. In fact, she just wanted a 51% controlling stake. Of course, the controlling rights are not in vain. Not only will she invest in a 51% proportion, but also provide land and local relations to promote the rapid implementation of cooperative projects. However, at the moment, Nippon Steel is obviously giving her a huge bargain. Just when she didn't know what to do, Charlie said, "Warnya, since Mr. Watanabe is so sincere, let me tell you to sign the contract now, and when we return to China, we will finish the domestic affairs. Then we can promote cooperation with Mr. Watanabe." Warnya heard this and hurriedly said, "Master, is this appropriate?" Charlie smiled, "There is nothing inappropriate, Mr. Watanabe." With full sincerity, "Don't you want to cooperate again?" Warnya hurriedly waved her hand, No, I didn't mean that." Charlie smiled and said, "Then you can sign the contract steadily." Watanabe also hurriedly echoed, "Yes, Miss Song, I am looking forward to cooperating with the Song Group. We signed the contract earlier to save nights and dreams. Good partners like Miss Song and the Song Group. I'm really afraid that you will not cooperate with us and will cooperate with other people instead." Warnya was so shocked that she couldn't add anything. What Watanabe said was too much for her and the Song Group. To be honest, this is how the Song Group is rushing to cooperate with Nippon Steel, and Nippon Steel is the world's top steel group, ranking first in Japan and top in the world. How could the Song Group turn to cooperate with others? However, Watanabe said that it would have lowered his worth and praised Warnya. It can be said that his posture has been very low. Charlie also said at this time, "Warnya, don't drag it, everyone is still waiting to eat, sign the contract quickly, let's have dinner, and prepare after eating, and go to the dock to take the boat." When Warnya heard this, she didn't hesitate anymore. She glanced at Charlie gratefully, and then immediately said to Watanabe, "Mr. Watanabe, let's sign the contract now." Watanabe naturally agreed, "Good job, sign it quickly." Takehiko Ito ordered his subordinates to prepare a portable printer, and then the two changed the data on the originally prepared contract on the computer, and then printed it out, signed and exchanged the papers with each other. Warnya is very excited, because, with this contract, the Song group will definitely make great progress in the future. If she manages well, the Song family may be able to become the new first family in the province in the future. Watanabe was even more excited. It is more important to him to be a complete man again. Moreover, getting acquainted with someone with great magical powers like Charlie, there must be more unimaginable benefits in the future. Therefore, this business is even more valuable to him. Takehiko Ito was equally excited. After drinking Charlie's glass of water, he obviously felt that his body became much stronger all at once. I used to be a little weak, as if I fell down with a blow, but now the whole person feels that the physical strength and energy are very abundant, and it can't be better. Except for the amputation of the legs that can't recover, the other feelings are the same as before I was not injured, and even vaguely stronger than then. This is also of great benefit to him. After all, after the body's vitality has been greatly recovered, he can prepare for rehabilitation training. Rehabilitation training for the disabled and amputees is very physically demanding and cannot be carried out when the body is weak. And if Takehiko Ito wants to wear a prosthesis, he needs to do a series of adaptive training in combination with the prosthesis, which requires more physical strength. Originally, he had to cultivate for at least another 6 months before it was possible to start rehabilitation training and prosthetic adaptation training. Now, Charlie helped him save at least half a year. When Warnya and Shinka Watanabe signed the contract, Takehiko Ito immediately started to cut the fish, and he also opened the specially prepared 50-year-old whiskey. The host and the guests enjoyed this meal. Takehiko is happy, Watanabe is also happy, Warnya naturally goes without saying. Charlie was also in a good mood. After all, a piggyback could help Warnya seek more benefits. This would provide her with greater help to control the Song family in the future and strengthen her control of the Song family. However, Nanako Ito felt a little lost. After all, Charlie was leaving tonight, and when he came to Tokyo this time, she didn't have much chance to get close to him. Therefore, during a meal, Nanako Ito has been peeking at Charlie, with a deep sense of reluctance in her gentle eyes. After dinner, in accordance with the rules of Japanese hospitality, all the wine and dishes are removed, and then they are served with the tea ceremony. However, Watanabe clearly couldn't sit still. His body's reaction has been strong and vigorous, so that he was a little absent-minded and couldn't wait to go home quickly, surprise his wife, and at the same time look for the happy feeling like a fairy. Therefore, after the meal, he stood up anxiously and bowed to everyone. Brother Ito, Mr. Wade, Miss Song, there are still problems in the home, so I will leave. Thank you Brother Ito for this hospitality. Thank you Mr. Wade for your help. I am grateful. Takehiko naturally knew what he wanted to do in a hurry, so he nodded and smiled. Okay, you can go back quickly. Charlie also smiled and said, It's late, Mr. Watanabe, go back to rest earlier. Shinka Watanabe hurriedly said respectfully, Mr. Wade, I don't know if I have this honor, can I exchange contact information with you? Charlie smiled slightly, nodded and said, Let Mr. Ito send you my mobile phone number then. Watanabe was overjoyed immediately. As long as Charlie is willing to exchange contact information with him, he can still ask him for help if he encounters any problems later. At this moment, Tokyo Airport. A military transport plane belonging to the Japanese Self-Defense Force landed at the airport. This C-2 military transport aircraft is developed and produced by Japan's Kawasaki Heavy Industries and has a full load capacity of more than 30 tons. In the cabin of the transport plane, nearly 100 Japanese Self-Defense Force soldiers with live ammunition are escorting more than 50 top SUA family masters, including Ruelai. Their task is to transport these people, including Ruelai, to Tokyo safely and hand them over to the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. The Matsumoto family's killing trial will soon open in Tokyo. By then, everyone including Ruelai will participate in the trial as defendants. The Japanese Judicial Department is preparing to conduct a public trial of Ruelai and others this time, and simultaneously broadcast live to the whole country and the world through TV and online channels. The reason for such a huge momentum is mainly because the previous Matsumoto family's killing has had too bad influence throughout Japan and even internationally, so that it seriously affected the overall image of the Japanese Judicial Department. The judiciary decided to save his face by severely punishing these murderers. After landing, the plane taxied all the way to an open apron. Hundreds of special forces from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department have been waiting here for a long time. All of them were loaded with live ammunition, and they had a strong spirit, for fear of any changes in this matter. Therefore, not only did they dispatch hundreds of elites this time, but also dispatched more than 30 wheeled armored vehicles. These wheeled armored vehicles, which are usually used to deal with terrorists and criminals, are now all mobile prison vehicles for this group of people. Ruelai was very nervous at this time. She knew that her father-in had already made arrangements to replace her with a substitute after arriving in Tokyo. Once he was successfully swapped out, his father's person would immediately arrange for him to leave Japan and return home. Ruelai believed very much in the ability of her father-in and believed that she would definitely be able to return to China alive, but deep down in her heart, she couldn't help feeling guilty for the companions around her. She thought to herself complicatedly, this time, although I can run away, these brothers have no such opportunity. In other words, what I have to do now is to betray all my comrades in arms, to forget their lives and deaths, and to escape alone. If they find out, they would hate me very much, right? Thinking of this, Ruelai couldn't help feeling a moment of shame. At this moment, the tailgate of the cabin was opened, and the armed self-defense team members began to ask them, these criminal suspects, to get off the plane in an orderly manner. On the outside of the plane, the special forces of the Metropolitan Police Department are ready. Every time a suspect comes down, they will immediately send 3 members to guard it 3-on-1. Not only are handcuffs indispensable, but they also cover their heads with a black cloth bag so that they cannot see their surroundings. As the first offender, Ruelai was taken directly into the first wheeled armored vehicle. Subsequently, the other suspects took a wheeled armored vehicle for 2 each, and the entire convoy left the airport in a mighty manner, preparing to go to the special prison with the most heavily guarded Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. At this time, on the edge of a crossroad on the highway outside the airport, several people in black are using binoculars to observe the convoy coming from a distance. One of them was holding a remote control in his hand, while keeping an eye on the leader of the convoy and counting the time. When the convoy was less than 50 meters away from the intersection, the man pressed the remote control, the original green light began to flash, and then quickly turned into a red light. Since the airport is in operation 24 hours a day, the traffic volume at this intersection is relatively busy. For the fleet of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, the traffic rules must also be observed. Therefore, the first-wheeled armored vehicle stopped directly at the frontmost position of the through lane. The convoy behind also slowly stopped. The logic of the red light conversion is to take turns in 4 directions, 1 minute in each direction, so it takes a long time to wait for the next round of green lights, which is a full 180 seconds. The special forces on the armored vehicles were all standing by for fear of any gaps in the escort. Fortunately, the vehicles that shuttle back and forth on both sides are showing nothing unusual, and no one approaches their convoy. But who would have thought that at this moment, the special forces in the first-wheeled armored vehicle immediately opened the emergency escape port under the vehicle. This wheeled armored vehicle specially prepared for special forces has very good safety. In order to ensure that the special forces in the vehicle can escape from danger, or after the door is severely hit or exploded, they are specially placed on the bottom of the armored vehicle. Installed an emergency exit opening from the inside to the outside. This emergency escape port is like a tank door installed upside down on the bottom of a wheeled armored vehicle. At this time, after the hatch was opened, a black sewer manhole was facing directly below. Because it is settled in advance, the manhole cover and the hatch are almost completely vertical. The hatch was just opened by the special forces in the car, and the sewer manhole cover was also removed at the same time. Immediately afterward, someone pushed up a woman with the same figure and clothes as Ruelai, and also wearing handcuffs and black cloth bags. As soon as the woman was pushed up, several special forces team members immediately pulled her into the car, let her sit beside Ruelai, and then immediately raised Ruelai, followed the emergency exit and sent her inside the sewer. After the sewers connected Ruelai into the sewers, they immediately gestured an OK to the special forces in the wheeled armored vehicle, and whispered, "The red light has 30 seconds left, close the hatch." The special fighters above nodded and said, "You should also quickly cover the manhole cover, and wait for our convoy to leave for 1 kilometer before taking Miss Sue away." The person below said immediately, "Don't worry, I know." After that, quickly replaced the sewer manhole cover. The emergency escape port of the armored vehicle was also closed at the same time, and everything worked in a tacit agreement, and it was seamless. After a few seconds, the red light turned green, and the armored car in the first place drove out, and the cars behind followed it. No one knew that the important suspect in that car had already been dropped. After the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department's convoy had left about 1 kilometer, a black truck came from a distance. When the truck came to the intersection, the traffic light just turned red. After the car stopped, someone in the box of the truck opened the secret entrance at the bottom and tapped the manhole cover directly below with a stick. Immediately afterward, the manhole cover was removed, and Ruelai, who was covering her head, was pulled into the truck again. Afterward, the manhole cover was tightly closed again, and the truck drove off with a kick, as if nothing had happened at the scene. In the carriage of the truck, a Japanese woman unbuttoned Ruelai's black headgear and looked at her, and said, "Miss Sue, I am entrusted by Mr. Sud to save you. We will now go to Tokyo Port, where the ship is already waiting. ITO house in downtown Tokyo. Charlie and Warnya are also ready to go. This evening is a good opportunity for smuggling. Because tonight, the Coast Guard patrol unit is going to overhaul the equipment. Therefore, there will be a few hours of vacuum time at sea. In addition, the Japanese Coast Guard is strict in entering and lenient in the exit. Most of their energy is trying to do everything possible to combat illegal immigrants who have smuggled into Japan or smuggled illegal goods into Japan. They have little interest in smuggling people and objects out of Japan. So in this way, it will be easier to leave Tokyo. Takehiko prepared the team and planned to personally send Charlie and Warnya to the dock. And Nanako also had this idea. Naturally, she felt unwilling to give up Charlie in her heart, but she knew very well in her heart that she would never be able to leave him. Therefore, she was very satisfied to be able to send Charlie to the dock. So, after everyone was ready, Charlie and Warnya, accompanied by Takehiko and Nanako, took the bus to the pier. In the car, Takehiko said to Charlie, "Mr. Wade, Nippon Steel's Hashimoto, has been taken to the dock by the ninja I sent." Charlie nodded in satisfaction, "Thank you, Mr. Ito." Takehiko hurriedly said, "Mr. Wade doesn't have to be so polite, it's all I should do." After driving for 40 minutes, the convoy arrived at the huge port of Tokyo. The entire port of Tokyo covers a large area, at least several kilometers along the coastline. Most of the berths are exclusive berths for ultra-large oil tankers and container freighters. These berths are close to the operation area. Not only are there many workers working here, but they are also the worst hit areas for smuggling, so customs inspections are very strict. The berth ITO prepared for Charlie and Warnya was actually a relatively simple and small wharf. This type of terminal can only dock ships under a few thousand tons, and the monitoring is relatively lax. In fact, smuggling does not start from embarking, because Tokyo port is still within Japan's territory and territorial waters, so embarking from here is not illegal. Boarding from here, as long as you don't leave the country without authorization, don't enter the high seas without authorization, it is all reasonable and legal. At this time, several small and medium-sized yachts were docked at the pier, the largest of which was a luxury cruise ship prepared by Takehiko for Charlie. The convoy drove directly to the dock and stopped directly at the boarding gate of the yacht. Although Takehiko lost his legs, he was still helped by someone in a wheelchair and got out of the car. After Charlie and Warnya got off the car, Takehiko said, "Mr. Wade, the crew and the captain are my confidants, you can rest assured." Charlie nodded slightly, "There is Mr. Takehiko, I don't have to worry." Takehiko hurriedly said, "You don't have to be so polite." Charlie looked at the time, and said to the father and daughter Ito Takehiko, "It's not early, we have to hurry up, so we won't talk more with them, we will have some time later." Takehiko Ito hugged his fists and said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, there will be a period later." Nanako said dishearteningly, "Master, there will be a period later." Charlie looked at her and smiled slightly and said, "Nanako, please take care." Nanako Ito nodded with red eyes, then looked at Warnya, who was holding the puppy, choked up and said, "Sister Warnya, I wish you a good journey. If you have a chance, you must come to Tokyo to see me." Warnya also hurriedly said, "Don't worry, I will definitely." If you have time, you can also come to Oris Hill to see me and Xiaohu. Nanako Ito took a bit of joy and said without hesitation, Sister, don't worry, I will come to see you after I finish this time. At this moment, a middle-aged man stepped down from the boat and said respectfully to Takehiko, Sir, we are ready to set sail at any time. Takehiko Ito asked, Where is Hashimoto? The other party said, Hashimoto is detained in the cabin for the first time, with all his limbs tied up. I sent a person to watch him, and there will be no mistakes. Ito nodded in satisfaction, and said to Charlie, Mr. Wade, you and Miss Song can board the ship. Charlie said, You guys go back too, let's go. Takehiko shook hands with Charlie, and Nanako also hugged Warnya gently. Later, Warnya came to Takehiko again and said sincerely, Mr. Ito, this time in Japan, thank you for your care. Takehiko Ito laughed, shook hands with Warnya gently, and said seriously, Miss Song, don't be polite with the Ito family at any time. You and Mr. Wade will always be the guests of the Ito family. Nanako Ito came to Charlie's side at this time, blushing and embarrassed. When she looked at Charlie, she gently opened her arms, Warnya to see Charlie's next reaction. She wanted to hug Charlie and bid farewell, but she was worried that Charlie was unwilling, so she could only use this small gesture to test it. Seeing Charlie smiled slightly and stretched out his hand towards her, Nanako hurriedly stepped forward, rushed into his arms, hugged him tightly, and said nothing. In fact, Nanako had many things in her heart to say to Charlie, but at this moment, in front of her father and Warnya, those things she wanted to say but couldn't say. The two embraced for a while, and with Takehiko's cough, Nanako hurriedly withdrew from Charlie's arms, and said to him with all her face, Master, take care. Charlie nodded lightly, and finally said goodbye to the father and daughter, and walked into the boat with Warnya. This cruise ship is very large, with 3 upper floors and 3 lower floors. On the uppermost deck, there is even a freshwater swimming pool, which is much more luxurious than the cruise ship that Mr. Song gave to Charlie. After Charlie and Warnya got on the ship, they went directly to the top deck, stood in front of the guardrail on the deck, waved to Takehiko and Nanako on the pier below, and said loudly, It's too late, the sea breeze is getting colder and colder. Go back quickly. Nanako nodded gently and asked her servant to help her father into the car. She also sat in the car obediently, but she was not in a hurry to let the driver drive, but wanted to wait for the boat to leave and watch Charlie fade into the horizon. At this moment, a business car with a one-way black film drove from the entrance of the dock, past the Ito family's convoy, and continued to drive forward. In this 3-row business car, sitting in the middle row is a beautiful woman with a struggling and painful expression. This woman is Ruelai. At this time, Ruelai was still ashamed of her own escape. At the thought of more than 50 followers who followed her and they were about to face severe punishment under Japanese law, Ruelai was not only ashamed but also hateful. What she hates is the man who cheated her and so many of her men at Osaka airport that day. She still remembers the appearance of that man. If she has a chance, she would kill him by herself and avenge her brothers. Just as she gritted her teeth, the driver said, Miss Su, our ship is in front, we are ready to set sail. Ruelai wanted to take a look at the ship that was about to take her out of Japan, when she suddenly caught a glimpse of a man standing on the deck of the cruise ship. At this moment, Ruelai's pupils suddenly shrank, and her expression became extremely cruel. She gritted her teeth and murmured, "It turned out to be him. It's really a narrow road to the enemy, ovens in the future." What Ruelai had originally thought was that after she successfully left Japan and survived this period of wind, she would seek revenge from that nasty man. But she never dreamed that, at the moment when she was about to leave Japan, she actually let herself on the dock and saw the man she had always hated. At this moment, her blood boiled suddenly. Her eyes, which were so beautiful that they were breathtaking, were already blood-red because of hatred. At this moment, she had only one thought in her mind: kill him. I, Ruelai, must kill him. At this time, Charlie, because his eyes and attention were on Nanako sitting in the car, he didn't notice the commercial car passing by the dock. Moreover, the business car is one-way light. Ruelai can see him in the car, but he can't see Ruelai, so he didn't know that an acquaintance passed by him at this time. Soon, the tail of Charlie's cruise ship was stirred by the slowly rotating propeller. The yacht also slowly leaves the dock with the rotation of the propeller. After that, the speed of the boat became faster and faster, and it quickly turned into a small light spot in Nanako's sight, and finally disappeared. No one noticed that the yacht at the next berth also accelerated away from the dock. At this time, in the cockpit of this yacht, Ruelai gave a cold voice to the captain: "Full power. We must catch up with the ship ahead." The captain hurriedly said, "Miss Su, our top priority now is to leave Japan's territorial waters and go to the high seas. Only after arriving in the high seas can you be considered safe." Ruelai gritted her teeth and said, "You don't understand. There is my unshakable enemy on that ship, I must kill him personally." The captain said embarrassingly, "Miss Su, I took Master Su's order to take you to the high seas as soon as possible without any delay, so I can only deny you." Ruelai said angrily, "Give me a call, I want to call the master." The captain hesitated for a moment, picked up the satellite phone on the ship, and said, "Miss Su, then I will call Master Su now, you can tell him yourself." After that, he used the satellite phone to call Cheng Feng, the head of the Su family. As soon as the phone was connected, Cheng Feng immediately asked, "How is the matter going?" The captain hurriedly said, "Master, Miss Su suddenly said that she wanted to chase and kill someone, so I called to ask you for instructions." Chen Feng's stern voice came, "She hasn't left Japan and headed to the high seas at this time to chase and kill anyone. If she gets caught by the police or the self-defense forces, the trouble will be big. Don't let her in this life do that, she must leave Japan." Ruelai grabbed the phone and couldn't wait to say, "Master. I'm Ruelai. I was at the dock just now and I ran into the person who had pitted us. He was the one who leaked our whereabouts to the Japanese self-defense force in Osaka. Caused us all to be arrested. If I don't retaliate this hatred, I won't die with peace." Cheng Feng hesitated for a moment, and said, "Okay. If this is the case, get rid of this trouble first. Otherwise, if you leave him in the world, I don't know if he will continue to pose other threats to Su family in the future." At this time, Xin, who had been staying next to Cheng Feng, hurriedly said, "Dad, don't let Ruelai take a reckless action at this time. The most important thing is to come back quickly. That person can think of a solution later, but if you leave here, if she can't escape this time, there will be no chance again. Cheng Feng sternly said, if we leave that person, none of us know his true identity. What if he is the enemy of the Sui family? What if he has already deliberately planned to deal with our family in secret? Xin said, Dad, we can look for this person slowly in the future. Don't be in a hurry. If you can meet him today, there will definitely be a chance in a while. Let Ruolai come back first. Cheng Feng immediately yelled, A's dollar hole. How come you don't have any overall view of the situation? This person has damaged more than 50 generals of my family with his own power. Do you know how much loss this has brought us? There are more than a few billion. What if he still has methods against us behind him? Speaking of this, Cheng Feng said coldly, this person is already a little fascinating, and his identity is uncertain. If we hadn't met him today, we might not be able to find him in this life, so we must not miss this opportunity. Otherwise, if you do, it will be a big mistake. As soon as Xin heard this, he immediately knew that the old man had made up his mind. He definitely couldn't convince him, so he could only tell Ruolai over the phone, Ruolai, since you want to get him, then Dad, I won't stop you. Listen to your grandfather's instructions, and be sure to find out his true identity. The first time Ruolai heard Xin talking to her as Dad, she thought of her identity as an illegitimate daughter. Today, she finally got the recognition of her biological father. With mixed emotions, she said excitedly, Dad, rest assured, if I leave, I will go all out. Cheng Feng also exhorted at this time, if Ruolai, it's better to be able to catch alive and take him back to East Cliff directly. I will try him personally. Ruolai immediately said decisively, Okay Lord, after I catch him, I will definitely leave him a dog. Cheng Feng said with a hum, and said, Okay, you can do it yourself. After that, he said, by the way, the few people who picked you up are all my confidants. They are all very skilled. When you act, let them be with you, so that the odds of winning will be greater. Ruolai said without hesitation, Okay, Lord. Cheng Feng said loudly, Tell them, if this thing is done well, I will reward them all. I know. After hanging up the phone, Ruolai immediately said to the captain, Go ahead at full speed and you must catch up with the ship ahead. The captain naturally didn't dare to make a mistake at this time, and immediately nodded and said, Okay Miss Su. After that, he maximizes the engine thrust. Several people who had rescued Ruolai started gearing up at this time because they heard what Cheng Feng said. One of them asked Ruolai, Miss Su, what should we do after we catch up with the other party? Ruolai's expression was stern, and she sternly said, We will use our side to rub the other party's ship and force the other party to stop. The man asked again, What if the other party doesn't stop the boat? Ruolai sneered, Don't stop the boat? No matter if he stops, when we are approaching, we jump directly onto their boat. After getting on the boat, we will take everyone except the target person, kill them, sink the ship to the bottom of the sea, and leave nothing else alive. Speaking of this, Ruolai clenched her fists, clenched a neat little white tooth, and said coldly, In any case, we must catch that guy. After leaving the dock, the boat that Charlie was riding on went all the way toward the open sea. Because Hashimoto was imprisoned in the cabin on the bottom floor, Charlie decided to take Warnya down to meet this guy for a while. The sailor on the ship took the two to the bottom cabin and pushed open one of the doors. In the room, a man wearing a high-end wool suit, his limbs are firmly fixed to a chair, his hands are tied to the handle of the chair, his legs and feet are tied to the front legs of the chair, above his head there is also a black bag on it, which covers the entire head. Charlie speculated that this person should be Hashimoto. For the sake of caution, Takeko's people used round steel pipes to firmly put each finger of Hashimoto inside, and then fixed them to the handrails together. In this way, Hashimoto couldn't even bend his fingers, let alone any possibility of escape. In addition, there was a man holding a stun gun standing beside him, staring at him unblinkingly. The security work can be said to be in place. Seeing Charlie coming in, the man holding the stun gun immediately said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, you are here." Charlie nodded, and asked, "Is this the man?" "Yes." The man immediately tore off the bag that Hashimoto put on his head and said, "Mr. Wade, this guy is Hashimoto. We have already confirmed it." At this time, Hashimoto had not adapted to the dazzling light, with the towel in his mouth, so he couldn't speak, he could only whimper, and his body was constantly struggling. Seeing him struggling desperately, Charlie basically didn't move, he couldn't help but smiled, "You are too cautious, and you don't need to tie your hands and feet. You also fixed all your fingers, so he is anxious." The man respectfully said, "Mr. Wade, you don't know that the villain in the movie and TV series always ignores the protagonist's hands, so no matter how you tie up the protagonist can find flaws and escape, so we simply put this guy all of his 10 fingers are wrapped in steel pipes, so that even Deluo Jinxian cannot escape." Charlie laughed, pointing to Hashimoto, and smiling, "It's such a thing, it's not worthy of being comparable to the protagonist in the film and television drama." At this time, Hashimoto also gradually recovered his vision. The first thing he saw was Charlie, whose hand was pointing at him. At this moment, he was astonished. Who is this person? Did he let someone kidnap me? Did I offend him? At this moment, Charlie stretched out his hand and took off the towel from his mouth, and said coldly, "Hashimoto is here first, right? Do you know why I tied you here?" Hashimoto subconsciously asked, "Who are you? I don't even know you, why are you asking someone to kidnap me?" Charlie didn't expect this guy to be stubborn, so he slapped him and yelled, "You're so good, you've done something shameless, don't you know it? You dare to question here?" Hashimoto blurted out, I am a law-abiding citizen of Japan. I am the vice president of Nippon Steel Group. I have never done anything lawless, but you. Do you know that kidnapping is a felony?" Charlie slapped him again and cursed, "Is it a felony? Okay, then you look at her and tell me whether kidnapping is more serious or murder is more serious." After all, he pulled Warnya to his side. When Hashimoto saw Warnya, he was shocked and dumbfounded. "Song, Miss Song." Warnya looked at Hashimoto with a look of disgust, and asked, "Mr. Hashimoto must have never thought that Warnya is still alive, right?" Hashimoto's nervous whole body shuddered. He knew that his murder attempt of Warnya was heinous. Warnya's whereabouts were unknown before, and her 2 assistants and the driver were all buried in the man-made traffic accident. Aside from other things, just killing 3 people is already an absolute felony. In murder, the plot is extremely bad and the methods extremely cruel. Now, Warnya was standing in front of Hashimoto alive, so he immediately realized that it was Warnya to seek revenge from him. He cried and pleaded almost immediately, "Miss Song, I am not the real mastermind of your unexpected event. The real mastermind is your brother Honor. Everything is his mastery." Warnya asked coldly, "Oh? It's all Honor's pot? Then I ask you, who lied to me that Mr. Watanabe was signing a contract with me? Who lied to me to go to the mountainous area of Nishitama County? And who arranged it? People smashed the 4 of us with a truck down the cliff." Hashimoto was constantly questioned by Warnya, so frightened, he begged, "Miss Song, this is your brother's idea. If you want to blame him, don't blame me." Warnya questioned, "According to you, if I ask someone to throw you into the sea right now, then you can't blame me, right?" As soon as Hashimoto heard this, his face turned pale in shock, and he hurriedly cried, "Miss Song, I didn't mean that. I just want you to spare my life. As long as you can spare me, I will do anything you want." Warnya looked at Charlie and asked, "Master, what are you going to do with this person?" Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Leave him a dog's life first. When I return to Oris Hill, I will give him a chance to make up for his work. If he can grasp it, then keep his dog's life. If he can't grasp it, then just chop him up and feed the dog." Hashimoto hurriedly pleaded, "You can tell me what you want me to do. I will do my best to get my life back." Charlie said coldly, "When it comes to Oris Hill, I will let you face-to-face confrontation with Honor. At that time, you have to say all the activities between you and Honor, and dare to miss one word, I will kill you." Hashimoto nodded like garlic, and cried, "Don't worry, I will listen to you and tell the truth." Charlie put the towel into his mouth again, and said to take Hako's men, "Continue to watch him." The man hurriedly said, "Okay, Mr. Wade." Charlie said to Warnya again, "Warnya, this Hashimoto is here for the time being, so he'll be locked up here. After he arrives in Oris Hill and confronts Honor, I will give you a satisfactory solution." Warnya respectfully said, "Master decides everything." Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Okay, go to the room and rest. I'll stand on the deck for a while." Warnya hurriedly asked, "Master, can I go with you to the deck and stay for a while before returning to the room?" Charlie nodded and smiled, "Of course you can, then let's go up together." When the 2 came to the deck, Charlie couldn't help sighing against the cold sea breeze. Although he has rescued Warnya safely now, and has begun to take her on the journey home. However, this matter is far from over. Next, is the most important part. Tianming and Honor, the vicious father and son, have not yet resolved. Now, Mr. Song pretends to protect himself from dementia. With his current situation, it is impossible for a single person to beat Tianming and his son. Once the father and son found out that he was in disguise, they would kill him immediately. Therefore, what he has to do next is to expose the true colors of Tianming and Honor, the father and son duo in public, rescue Old Song, and let Warnya regain control of the entire Song family group. However, after this, we still have to face the problem of how to solve Tianming and honor. In Charlie's view, the father and son not only committed the crime of intentional homicide, but also directly attacked their loved ones. Not only were they rebellious, but also heinous. Even if they resorted to the law, they should be sentenced to death. Therefore, there is no need for people like this to stay in this world. However, these two people are after all Warnya's close relatives. How to deal with them depends on what Warnya and even Mr. Song meant. Warnya was also standing on the deck at this time, blowing the sea breeze, looking at Tokyo further and further away, and said with emotion, "Master, if it were not for you, I might have died in Tokyo." Charlie smiled and said, "Don't say such dejected words. You auspicious people have their own heavens. Even without me, you shouldn't die. You won't die." Warnya smiled gratefully and asked him, "Master, if I really died, would you be sad?" Charlie said seriously, "Of course, don't forget, you are my friend." Warnya's expression was a little joyful and a little disappointed. She secretly said in her heart, "Could it be that in my life, the relationship with Master can only stop at the word friend?" The past keeps reappearing in her heart, and she comforted herself from the bottom of her heart. "Master has treated me very well, I should be satisfied." At this moment, Charlie looked at Warnya and asked, "Warnya, have you ever thought about how to deal with your uncle and cousin after this incident?" Warnya was slightly surprised, thinking for a long time, shaking her head blankly and saying, "Master, I haven't thought about this question." Charlie nodded and sighed lightly. "You haven't thought about it before, now you should think about it." Warnya asked him, "Master, do you have any good suggestions?" Charlie said, "My suggestion is very simple, just 5 words, cut the grass and root." Warnya's expression flashed a little struggling, and she clenched the railing with both hands, and said tangledly, "I know what you mean, but after all, they are all from the Song family. And they are my dearest relatives. I can't do it." Charlie said lightly, "You don't need to start this matter, you just have to make a decision." Warnya sighed, "I know what you mean, but it is very difficult to make this decision. I have to consider not only my own feelings but also the feelings of my grandpa and the feelings of everyone in the Song family." "It's all a family?" Charlie asked, "but when they tried to kill you, did they treat you as a family?" Warnya nodded, "They are really amazing, but I am not them after all." After that, she said again, "Master, in fact, you... Actually, you don't know. Since the Song family has no great people in my generation, Grandpa used to feel sorry for this. If the uncle and cousin die again, it must be a bigger blow to him." Charlie smiled indifferently, "I understand what you mean. After all, blood is thicker than water. It's okay to spare their lives, but there is one thing you should pay attention to." Warnya hurriedly said, "Master, please speak." He said, "You can keep their lives, but you must remember that capital crimes can be avoided, but living crimes are inevitable. While forgiving them, you must give them enough punishment, and you must fully restrict their future possibility. Only in this way can future troubles be eliminated to the greatest extent." Warnya nodded, "I know, Master, I will definitely consider this matter." While speaking, Charlie suddenly heard it, and a faint roar came from directly behind. He turned his head and saw that at a distance of about 1 or 2 kilometers from his own ship, a smaller one was rushing towards him at full speed. When a ship is sailing on the sea, the wind noise and the slap of the waves are already very loud. At this time, it is difficult to hear the sound of other ships. At such a distance, it is difficult to hear the sound even when the siren is fully opened. If it wasn't for Charlie's hearing sense to be much more sensitive than ordinary people, it would be impossible to hear it. Seeing that there was still a ship following him on the empty sea, Charlie immediately felt that something was wrong with this matter. He immediately said to Warnya, you go back to the room first. Seeing Charlie's solemn expression, Warnya felt that something was wrong. So she hurriedly asked, Master, is something wrong? He looked at the light that was approaching in the distance, with a sneer at the corner of his mouth, and said playfully, we seem to have new guests again. Warnya followed his gaze. She only saw a ship on the sea, directly behind their ship, constantly approaching. She was a little surprised and asked, Master, do you suspect that the ship's target is us? Charlie smiled slightly, their goal may be just me, not you. Warnya immediately said firmly, Master, I want to be with you. Charlie smiled and said, No, you go back to the room and stay there, I can solve any problem alone. But, Warnya's expression increased. If there was any danger, she would definitely not want Charlie to stay alone. Charlie said with comfort at this time, Warnya, what's the matter? You can't help me if you stay here, and you may become a burden, so you should go back to the room as soon as possible to make me more at ease. After speaking, Charlie added, You are not clear about my situation. It is impossible for ordinary people to hurt me. Warnya hesitated repeatedly, nodded gently, and exhorted, Master, then you must pay attention to safety. Charlie nodded and smiled, Okay, don't worry. As soon as the voice fell, a sailor ran out of the stairs on the deck, and said nervously, Mr. Wade, there is a ship behind us that has been following us and is rushing towards us with all strength. The captain suspects that the other party is not good, let me ask you. What are you going to do? Charlie smiled indifferently, they should be here for me. Don't all of you come to the deck later, leave everything here to me. The sailor hurriedly said, How can this work? Mr. Wade, Mr. Ito, and the chairman told us that we must safely send you and Ms. Song to China. If the other party is really bad, then we will fight with them. At the same time, ask Mr. Ito for help and let him send reinforcements as soon as possible. Charlie waved his hand, No, listen to me, send Miss Song back to the room, and then everyone stays in the cabin. Without my permission, don't come on deck anyway. As the yacht on board was getting closer and closer to Charlie, Ruelai's face had begun to show the joy of revenge. She was born in one of the largest martial arts families in China, and she has undergone the country's top martial arts education since she was a child. She is definitely a master of masters. The strength is countless times stronger than those fancy large-scale goods outside. Therefore, she didn't pay attention to Charlie's strength at all. In her impression, he is just a guy who owes a lot, and is cheap and sinister. There may be a little skill and a little background, but it is absolutely impossible to be a top master. After all, what the masters pay attention to is fair competition, what is the ability to call the police behind their back. Therefore, she has determined at this time that she must be able to avenge her original revenge today. At this time, the captain reported, "Miss Su, we are less than 800 meters away from the target ship." Ruelai wiped the sweat from her palms excitedly, and said, "Give me the telescope." Immediately, a sailor handed a high-powered telescope for navigation to her hand. Ruelai raised the binoculars and looked at it, and immediately saw Charlie standing on the deck alone, his face full of leisure and contentment. Because of the extremely high clarity of the telescope, Ruelai could almost completely see Charlie's expression. At this time, he carried a natural indifferent calmness on his face. If there was a smile at the corner of his mouth, he could always give the other party a feeling of being despised. Therefore, in Ruelai's view, his current appearance is simply a perfect portrayal of pretending to be so compelling. At this moment, Charlie's eyes seemed to look in Ruelai's direction, and the smile on the corners of his mouth grew a bit thicker. Ruelai felt an inexplicable nervousness at first, and thought to herself, "That kid's expression seems to have seen through me, does he know that I want to come to him for revenge?" Thinking of this, she shook her head again and muttered softly to herself, "Impossible. Today he arrived at the pier first and got on the boat first. When I got to the pier, he was already on board, and I was riding his car as one-way glass. It is impossible for him to see me. This means that the situation tonight is the enemy's light and I am dark, so he can't detect me now. It seems that I think too much." As soon as she thought of this, she couldn't help but smile coldly, and gritted her teeth and said, "Boy, Auntie will make you unable to laugh later." Having said that, she sternly shouted, "Go ahead at full speed." "Okay." The boat Ruelai was sailing in was smaller than Charlie's, and the boat's speed was relatively faster, so after running full horsepower, the gap narrowed faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, the distance between the two sides was only 500 meters. With the help of a telescope, Ruelai could even see the sparse scum on Charlie's face. At this time, Charlie's smile was even stronger, and his eyes kept staring in Ruelai's direction. She was a little flustered at this moment. If the look in his eyes just now was an accident, then why is he still looking at me now? Thinking of this, she gritted her teeth and said to a few people around her with a stern face, "Everyone, get ready for battle." "Yes." Several people immediately responded, and then took out their weapons from their waists. Japan's gun control is very strict, so they use almost all the hidden weapons commonly used in martial arts. And the distance between ships is getting closer. Ruelai raised her hands, tied her long hair into a crisp high ponytail, and immediately said to a few people around, "The captain will hit the opponent's side first, and then slam the direction so that the boat is close to each other. When the boat will be attached to each other, the other people jumped up with me, grabbed the man on the deck for the first time, and killed all the rest." Several people looked terrified, and immediately said in unison, "Okay." When it comes to killing, Ruelai never relents. From the moment she was born, her mother had always instilled a belief in her. That is, her most important task in this life is to do her best to serve her biological fathers and the entire Sui family. This belief, over time, became her unwavering belief in life. She was brainwashed by her mother since she was a child, and she has been brainwashed for 21 years. Therefore, as long as it is beneficial to the Sui family, even if it makes her an enemy of the whole world, she does not hesitate. If someone dared to be disadvantageous to the Sui family, it would even touch her absolute negative scale. This is the fundamental reason why she will destroy the entire Matsumoto family. She and Charlie not only have personal grievances, but also family grudges. It was precisely because Charlie pitted her and more than 50 other Sui family masters that the Sui family's vitality was severely injured and suffered heavy losses. Therefore, she now not only wants to avenge herself, but also the Sui family. At this time, the distance between the two ships was only less than 200 meters. Even without relying on the telescope, Ruelai could clearly see Charlie's facial features and the strange smile on his face. This smile makes her feel déjà vu now. When she and other Sui masters were taken away by the Japanese self-defense force in a bus at Osaka airport, Charlie, who was standing in the cockpit of a private jet, looked at her with such a smile on his face. At this moment, Ruelai realized that Charlie was indeed looking at her all the time. It was from the beginning, and it is still. She couldn't help being surprised. This guy, could he perceive that she was observing him? On this vast sea, and in the middle of the night, thousands of meters away, did he find her? In fact, she didn't know that Charlie had not only noticed that she was observing him, but had even noticed her identity. Just when Ruelai was shocked, the distance between the two ships was getting closer and closer. 100 meters, 50 meters, 30 meters. Ruelai's eyes were red and shouted at the captain, "Continue to accelerate. Hit it." The captain shouted, "Miss Sue, the engine thrust has been driven to its maximum." Ruelai shouted, "There are still the last 20 meters, everyone ready to charge." As soon as Ruelai left the voice, Charlie said loudly with a smile on his face, "Hey, the boat is also bought for money, hit a hairy hit. If it crashes, don't spend money to repair it." Ruelai was dumbfounded immediately, and blurted out, How can he hear me?" Ruelai at this time was in the cockpit. Across the windows and doors, coupled with the sound of wind and waves outside, even standing at the door, it is impossible to hear what the people inside are saying. What's more, this is still 20 meters away. The captain was also a little panicked, and subconsciously said, "Miss Sue, the wind and waves outside are so big, and the distance is so far away, why can we hear his voice clearly?" Ruelai was even more surprised when she heard this. Secretly said in her heart, "Yes. He just spoke as if he was in her ears, how did he do this?" At this moment, the captain saw that she didn't respond, and couldn't help but blurt out, "Miss Sue, what should I do now?" Ruelai didn't know what to do at once. The distance between the two ships is only about 10 meters. Charlie continued to smile at this time, "I urge you to think more about it. If two ships collide with each other and everyone is left on the vast sea, shouldn't you call the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force for help?" With that, Charlie added, "But I am not afraid, but what about you? There is a serious prisoner on the ship who is at large. If she is caught by the Japanese Self-Defense Force, I am afraid she will be shot directly." Charlie's words immediately made Ruelai involuntarily nervous. She is the super felon in the eyes of the entire Japanese judiciary, and the culprit who wiped out the Matsumoto family. If the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force was really recruited after the collision, she would definitely not be able to escape. Moreover, if the Japanese find out that she has escaped from prison, they will definitely take care of her and will never give her a second chance to escape. Thinking of this, Ruelai gritted her teeth and said in a cold voice, "Slow down. Just get up, don't hit." The captain breathed a sigh of relief and quickly took an emergency brake. Ruelai's eyes were full of hatred and determination at this time, and she coldly shouted to the people around her, "Come with me." After all, she took the lead in rushing out of the cockpit and directly onto the side of the ship. At this time, the two ships were almost pasted, and Ruelai was standing in front of the railing on the side of the ship, and was only 35 meters away from Charlie on the opposite deck. Face to face with Charlie again, Ruelai's eyes were full of resentment towards him, gritted her teeth and shouted coldly, "Boy! You ran away last time, this time you will never have such good luck. If I don't take it today your dog's life, I will not be called Ruelai." Charlie laughed and said happily, "Girl, have you always been so temperamental? Or is it because your life is too depressing when you grow up the day after tomorrow, so your temper is getting worse and worse?" Ruelai scolded angrily, "Don't be silly with me. If you tell me your name honestly, I can keep you a whole body. Otherwise, you will be broken into pieces." Charlie smiled and said, "Girl, I think you are young, beautiful, and energetic, so you can be considered a top-notch beauty, so don't just say things like broken corpses. Isn't it better to be gentle? You? Remember, gentle girls are the most likable to men. With a tigress character like you, it is very likely that you will die alone." "What are you talking about?" Ruelai pointed at Charlie and gritted her teeth, "Boy! After you die, I will sew your mouth together and let you be dumb in your next life." Charlie smiled playfully, "Then see if you have the ability to kill me. If you have this ability, if you want to kill, please do whatever you want, but if you don't have this ability, then I will let you feel my punishment." Ruelai glared at him and screamed, "Go to hell!" After speaking, with one hand on the fence, the whole person suddenly jumped several meters high, and charged towards Charlie with all her strength. Charlie stood by the fence with a disdainful smile on his face. Ruelai is indeed a master, but this master is for ordinary people. For Charlie, her mastership is basically the same as the old ladies on the street who could not restrain the chickens. In other words, it is like an online game. In front of a level 100 boss, there is no real difference between a level 10 player and a level 1 player. For the 100 level boss, the player who cuts the first level only needs one knife, the player who cuts the 10th level also only needs one knife. However, Ruelai didn't know that she was completely vulnerable to Charlie. She leaped into the deck of Charlie's ship, and saw that he has been standing motionless by the railing. She wanted to strangle his throat directly. But she didn't expect that Charlie, who had always been calm, took a step back a little later in the critical juncture, and immediately escaped Ruelai's attack. Charlie could have just stepped forward and used Ruelai's acceleration to subdue her, but he didn't plan to do so. In his eyes, Ruelai is like a little milk dog encountered on the street. She obviously has no strength, but she prefers to bark and sometimes wants to rush to bite. Although the character of this kind of little milk dog is very annoying, but the key is that it has a pretty high face value. As a result, people have the idea of teasing it. Besides, Charlie saw that Ruelai left behind and followed several subordinates. These people had already begun to climb over the railings and climb onto his ship. If he had solved Ruelai now, the others would see it. Definitely turn around and run. So, he might as well wait for them all to get on his own boat, and then give them an urn to catch turtles. Thinking of this, Charlie continued to back up a few steps, letting Ruelai chase him. When Ruelai chased him, other people also rushed up. Seeing this, he smiled with satisfaction on his face. Since they are all here, then I won't waste everyone's time. After that, he suddenly seemed to have changed a person, and his whole body exploded with an astonishing aura. Ruelai is a master of the inner family and has already developed a good inner strength, so she immediately felt the momentum released from Charlie, and the whole person was suddenly stunned. If I didn't feel wrong just now, the inner strength of this kid should be much stronger than me. But, he doesn't look like a master at all. Could it be that I am wrong? Before Ruelai hadn't figured it out, Charlie had stopped retreating and rushed towards her directly. At this moment, Charlie's whole body was sharp and lightning. Even when running, there is even a sound of breaking through the air. Compared with the silly dude before, it's a completely different person. Ruelai was shocked and immediately stopped, standing still and preparing to respond with all her strength. However, just when Charlie was about to rush to her, his whole person suddenly evaporated, and he had disappeared from Ruelai's eyes. Before she could figure out what was going on, she heard a few screams suddenly behind her. She turned around in a hurry, and the situation in front of her immediately shocked her. At this moment, out of the 6 men who followed her, 3 of them were already lying on the ground wailing, and the other was raised in the air with one hand by Charlie, while screaming, and like a javelin at the same time, Charlie threw him out vigorously. The other 2 wanted to escape, but one of them was directly knocked to the ground by the person who Charlie had thrown over. In the end, before that person had time to escape, Charlie grabbed his neck by neck and was directly lifted by him like a chicken, standing him up. The person was so scared that he was so frightened that he cried and cried, "Big brother, please be forgiving." Charlie smiled and said, "You're forgiving, right? Okay, don't say I won't give you a chance. You have to fight for your own way to survive." The man nodded repeatedly and blurted out, "Don't worry, no matter what you say, I will do it." Charlie said indifferently, "I don't need you to do anything for me. You got on my ship without my permission. I just want you to fuck off, that's all." As soon as the man heard this, he immediately said with joy, "I'm going to get out of here, out of here." He thought that Charlie was telling him to roll back to the boat where he came, so he was naturally relieved. However, he never expected that Charlie to directly throw him out with a wave of his hand. At the moment he rose into the air and flew to the sea, Charlie said coldly, "Whether you can survive or not depends on your own good fortune." At the moment that person rose into the sky, he sadly discovered that he was thrown to the left side of the cruise ship by Charlie, and the ship in which he came was on the right side of the cruise ship. Moreover, Charlie's hand was so powerful that he threw him for more than 10 meters in one fell swoop. The whole person fell directly into the cold water with a huge parabola. The location here is not far from the open sea, the water depth has reached thousands of meters, and it is winter, and the sea is bitterly cold. When he fell into the sea with a thump, the impact itself made him feel pain. Immediately afterward, the clothes on his body were completely soaked in cold water, and all of a sudden he felt like an ice cellar. In this case, he could only struggle desperately, trying to swim back to his boat. However, the sea was very windy and he was just in the downwind direction, so no matter how hard he swam, he still failed to narrow the distance between him and the cruise ship by even a few meters. Just when he was desperate, there were a few more thumps on the sea. It turned out that the few people left were thrown into the sea one by one, like dumplings. The lives of these people are far worse than the first one. After all, the first kid was not beaten and was thrown down. But other people didn't have such good luck. They were first beaten and wounded by Charlie, and then thrown into the sea, which basically lost half their lives. The remaining half-life is not enough in such cold water. Several people screamed and thumped desperately, for fear of sinking directly to the bottom of the sea and losing their lives here. On the ship carrying Ruelai, the captain, and several sailors were shocked. What happened? Ruelai led the team. A total of 7 people went to fight, but 6 were thrown into the sea? The sailor asked at this moment, "Captain, do we want to save them?" The captain said with an indifferent expression, "Save them? Don't forget our mission. Focus all your energy on Miss Sue. The lives of these people are not worth mentioning." When the sailor heard this, he had to shut his mouth with interest. At this time, on the deck of another ship, Ruelai's heart has been cold for more than half. She really didn't expect Charlie to have such abnormal strength. Moreover, not only the strength is abnormal, but the working style is also abnormal. He actually threw all her subordinates into the sea. Is this a human job? As the saying goes, if you want to kill, you have to kill them. Their strength is not good. It doesn't matter if you kill them directly, but why throw them into the sea? Thinking of this, Ruelai couldn't help but worry about herself. In this way, she was probably not Charlie's opponent. If she was thrown into the sea later, wouldn't it be a shame? Ruelai didn't doubt her abilities. She believed that even if she was thrown into the sea, she could easily swim back to the boat. It's just that she grew up so old and had never suffered such a loss, so she couldn't accept it for a while. At this moment, Charlie had already thrown all the 6 young men into the sea, clapped his hands, and said with a look of contempt, "Is the Sue family's dog so capable? If the Sue family's strength is so poor, then I think it should almost give up the seat of the first family." When Ruelai heard this, she was immediately furious. The thing she can't stand most is that someone dares to be disrespectful to the Sue family. Although she was still an unrecognized illegitimate daughter, she felt that the blood of the Sue family was flowing in her bones. Therefore, in any case, don't let others blaspheme the Sue family. So, she angrily reprimanded, "Boy! Dare to be disrespectful to the Sue family, you are looking for death." Charlie sneered, "Why? This is disrespect to the Sue family? I tell you, sooner or later, I will let Cheng Feng and Zhen kneel down in front of me and beg me to forgive them." Ruelai felt a buzz in her head in this one. Cheng Feng is her grandfather. And Zhen is her biological father. Since she was a child, under the indoctrination of her mother, she has a fascination with her father. Therefore, at this time, she could not wait to torture Charlie on the spot in order to avenge him for insulting her father. At this moment, she took out a sharp black blade dagger from her waist, and said coldly, "Boy, today I must make you die without a place to be buried." Saying it, Ruelai yelled and rushed towards Charlie. This time, she no longer wanted to analyze in her heart, between Charlie and herself, who is strong and who is weak, who wins and who loses. She has been dazzled by anger. She just wants to take advantage of Charlie early and defend the dignity of her father and the Sua family. However, Charlie is something she can handle. Seeing her holding a dagger and rushing forward, Charlie stood still and waited for her. The closer Ruelai is to Charlie, the faster the speed. She has gathered all her internal energy on her right arm, and with the sharp blade of titanium alloy in her hand, even if it is a car, he can be cut off by her, not to mention a flesh and blood body. Moreover, she knew very well in her heart that the more internal energy she gathered, the greater the potential energy of this knife. And the faster you run, the greater the inertia of your body. Adding the two together, the strength of this blow would be difficult for the gods to resist. Therefore, at this moment, she was ready to kill Charlie with one blow. But the moment she rushed to him, a sudden change suddenly appeared. Charlie did not step back, nor did he dodge, but directly stretched out a hand, and easily grasped Ruelai's wrist. Ruelai felt as if her wrist was completely fixed, unable to move at all, and her heart was shocked. And her worldview was almost completely subverted at this moment. She learned the peak martial arts of the He family since she was a child. When she was 18 years old, she was already the strongest among the younger generation of the He family. Moreover, in the entire He family, her strength is second only to several elders including Grandpa. Her mother, Roma, is not Ruelai's opponent because of the loss of an arm. This shows that her strength is by no means comparable to ordinary people. At this time, she was extremely horrified, and said in her heart, "I just made such a full blow, even if the strongest grandpa of the He family is here, it is impossible to resist it so easily. Grandpa must at least go all out to fight my strength, for this blow is completely removed. But, my full blow, in front of this guy, is like a child's play. This guy just moved his hands and completely resolved my thunderous offensive and brought the whole offensive to an abrupt end. This, how capable is he?" Ruelai knew that the overall strength of her attack was not weaker than the bullet that came out of the chamber. Charlie stretched out his hand to block all her attacks. It was equivalent to stretched out his hand to pinch the bullet that came from a rapid shot. Therefore, Ruelai stretched out inwardly and exclaimed, This is simply not something a human can do. What magical powers does this man in front of me have?" Rarely in her heart, she became flustered, and blurted out, "You? Who are you?" "Me." Charlie smiled indifferently, "Say a word without blowing or pretending. I am someone you and your entire Sua family can't afford to offend." Charlie now has nothing to fear. Neither the Wade family nor the Sua family could make him fear at all. With his strength, it may not be difficult to take the heads of Cheng Feng and Xin among 10,000 people. The reason why he hasn't acted to remove the two Sus right away is mainly because he wants to wait for the opportunity to give Sua family a complete crush. Not only are the people who are stronger than the Sua family, but they also have an absolute advantage over the Sui family in the industry. Only in this way can the Sui family be able to bow down in a true sense. However, Ruolai didn't know Charlie's depth at all. She just felt that the strength of this man was terrible to abnormal. However, even so, he could not be the opponent of the entire Sui family. But Ruolai was also very clear in her eccentricity. Now that it doesn't make any sense to say this. The most important thing at the moment is how can I escape from this abnormal man? She is not afraid of death. However, when she thought of her father spending a lot of energy, financial resources, material resources, and manpower in order to rescue her, her inner desire to survive instantly reached its peak. So she looked at Charlie and said, "If you let me go, our previous grievances can be wiped out. Otherwise, the Sui family will definitely not let you go." Charlie smiled and said, "The people of the Sui family won't let me go? To tell you the truth, even if the people of the Sui family don't find me, I will go to them." Ruolai's expression was startled, and she blurted out and asked, You have an enmity with the Sui family?" Charlie nodded, "Of course. And it's an unshakable enemy." Ruolai was in ashes. She felt that since the young man in front of her had an antagonism with the Sui family, he naturally couldn't let her go. It seems that she is going to die here today. Thinking of this, she thought of her parents who were still waiting for her to return home, her eyes filled with tears. Immediately, she looked at Charlie and said seriously, "Since my skills are not as good as humans, you can kill or slash as you please." Charlie smiled lightly, "Don't worry, I won't kill you." "What?" Ruolai exclaimed, "You won't kill me?" Charlie nodded, "You committed a capital crime in Japan, and now you are an escaped prisoner. As long as I hand you over to the Japanese Judicial Department, they will naturally sentence you to death." Speaking of this, Charlie frowned suddenly, and immediately looked at her with cold eyes. He looked her up and down, and asked, "The Japanese Judicial Department hates you so much? The Sui family can save you in this situation. It shouldn't cost less, right?" Ruolai was afraid that he would notice something, so she avoided his eyes and dared not answer. She was afraid that Charlie knew that she was the illegitimate daughter of Xin. In that way, not only might he use her as a bargaining chip to threaten her father and the Sui family, but he might even make her identity public. Although she hopes that her father can recognize her identity, she also knows that her father is the son of Su's family after all, and he has the original wife and a pair of children. If her identity is exposed at once, it will be very bad for her father's reputation and family happiness will have a big negative impact. Ruolai only wanted to share his worries for her father all her life, and never thought of causing trouble to her father, so at this time, it was panic deep in her heart for fear that Charlie would notice it. Seeing Ruolai avoiding his eyes, and at the same time shutting his mouth, he realized that something was wrong in his heart. He sighed with emotion, "You are now the #1 serious criminal in Japan. In this case, they can still get you. When it comes out, the Sui family will have to spend at least 1 billion yuan, or even more, to achieve freedom for you." Speaking of this, Charlie stared at Ruolai, and said coldly, "The style of the Sui family, I have also heard that the current patriarch Cheng Feng is not a generous person, he cannot be willing to spend so much money to save one servant, even if you do have some strength, you are definitely not worth so much money. At this point, Charlie deliberately stretched the tone and sneered, unless you are not a subordinate of the Sui family. Although Ruelai is very strong, her social experience and emotional intelligence do not quite pass the test. Hearing this, the whole person is obviously a little flustered. She said, "No, not as you expected. I am indeed a servant of the Sui family." Charlie sneered, "It seems that you do lack some social experience. The look in your eyes has given me a clear signal." Ruelai asked in a panic, "Ah? What signal?" Charlie smiled and said, "I guessed the signal right." After that, he asked coldly, "Who are you from the Sui family?" "I have investigated you, Ruelai, the subordinate of the Sui family, and the bodyguard of Xin. Although you also have the surname Su, you are not in the Sui family." "What is the relationship?" Ruelai nodded hurriedly, "Yes, I am indeed just a subordinate of the Sui family." Charlie waved his hand, "No, I said, the Sui family can't do such a big fight for a subordinate. Therefore, your identity as a subordinate of the Sui family is not the key to let the Sui family save you." Speaking of this, Charlie stared at Ruelai's somewhat horrified eyes, and said lightly, "So, you must have another identity." Ruelai shook her head repeatedly in shock, and said in a begging voice, "I am not, I really don't have any other identity. If you want to kill me quickly, don't humiliate me like this, okay?" Charlie saw her nervous performance in his eyes, and laughed coldly, "The Sui family values you so much, and you are so sincerely defending the Sui family. This performance has obviously surpassed the feelings between the master and servant. Could it be? Could it be that you and the Sui family are related by blood? After all, your surname is Su." Ruelai shook her head desperately, "Although my surname is Su, it is just a coincidence. I came to Su's house when I was 18 years old. My main job is to be Xin Su's bodyguard, occasionally with Su. The other subordinates in the family perform some relatively secret tasks. For example, I am responsible for leading the execution of the killing of Matsumoto Maki. What I told you is the truth. I really have no other identity." Charlie smiled and said, "The better you are, the more you explain, the more you want to cover it up, in my opinion. If you are really just a subordinate of the Sui family and you are ready to die for the master, and you don't want my life, but you are here to explain so much to me. Obviously, you're arguing for the Sui family." Having said that, Charlie teased, "Let me guess, are you the illegitimate daughter of someone from the Sui family? That's why they tried so hard to save you, right?" Ruelai turned pale with fright. She shook her head desperately and even threw out her tears. She choked and said, "I'm really not the illegitimate daughter of the Sui family, please believe me." Charlie ignored her, shook his head, and muttered, "Whose illegitimate daughter will you be? Cheng Feng? It's unlikely. Cheng Feng is an old dog who is about to die. He should not have the ability to raise a young woman. Little girl, besides, if you are really his illegitimate daughter, he will never arrange for you to protect Xin. In that case, Xin may find out at any time." Speaking of this, Charlie looked up and down Ruelai and asked with a smile, "So, you should be the illegitimate daughter of Xin? Xin simply kept you by his side as a bodyguard in order to conceal you from others. Close contact, without being suspected by others. Am I right? Charlie just speculated, and by the way, observed Ruelai's reaction. Unexpectedly, as soon as these words came out, Ruelai's body trembled uncontrollably. At this moment, Charlie immediately understood in his heart that he was right. This girl is the illegitimate daughter of Xin. No wonder. No wonder the Sui family was willing to spend so much effort to rescue her from the Japanese judicial department. It turns out that this girl is the flesh and blood of Xin. Interesting. Ruelai was already shocked at this time. She didn't expect that the man in front of her would guess her true identity in such a short time. You know, the entire Sui family, there are only two people who know her true identity. One is her biological father, Xin, and the other is her grandfather, Cheng Feng. Even Haifei and Zihu didn't know that the girl who had been acting as bodyguards by their side was actually their sister. And Xin's original wife, even more ignorant. Ruelai was very afraid of the man in front of her and stabbed this matter out. In that case, her father's reputation would suffer a huge blow. Thinking of this, she immediately had a plan to die deep in her heart, and she thought to herself sadly, as long as I live, I will be Xin's daughter. No matter how I deny it, his blood is flowing in my body. But, if I die, no one can claim that I am the daughter of Xin. Even if this man exposes my identity, because I'm dead, my father can firmly deny my identity. It seems that only when I am dead can I become less of a liability, and can keep the secret of my identity forever. At this point, she immediately said to Charlie pleadingly, "Please, kill me. Or you can let go of my hand and let me end it by myself." Charlie smiled and said, "How is it possible? Not only will I not kill you, but I also will not let you commit suicide." Ruelai asked in horror, "What are you going to do?" Charlie smiled and said, "Little girl, don't be afraid, I will take you home. You must be very wrong for so many years of hiding the secret of your identity. Don't worry, I will help you get back the identity of Sui family. Let you enjoy everything you should have enjoyed long ago." "No." Ruelai immediately broke down and cried, crying in silence, "I have killed countless people and committed serious crimes. You should treat the people as the people and give me a happy." With that, she tried her best to break free from Charlie's hand. However, Charlie's hand seemed to be frozen, and she couldn't shake it at all. Seeing her desperately seeking death, Charlie became more and more interesting, and deliberately ridiculed, "If a beautiful girl like you is dead, it would be a shame. How could I do this kind of cruelty and brutality?" Ruelai looked at Charlie and choked with horror. "What do you want to do?" Charlie smiled and said, "I think it is very simple, take you back to the country, disclose your identity, and let your dad give you an upright name, isn't that good?" "I don't want." Ruelai's tears became a thread, and her other hand began to desperately try to break Charlie's fingers. Her eyes were aggrieved and horrified, and said, "I'm doing this good, I don't want to be the eldest lady of the Sui family, I don't want to cause them any trouble, I beg you, kill me, and then throw me into the sea." Charlie asked back, "Why? Your father gave birth to you and asked him to admit that your identity is justified. Why would it cause him trouble in your eyes?" Although Ruelai was in tears, she still said stubbornly, "I don't want to cause trouble to him, nor do I want to cause trouble to my mother." Charlie smacked his lips, Tisk, you are really strange. You can kill dozens of people for the Sua family without blinking, but now you don't want to cause any trouble to the Sua family. How can you be so selfless to the Sua family? Where is this dedication coming from? Ruelai was speechless when asked by Charlie. The reason for this dedication is because of the brainwashing education she has experienced since she was a child. She firmly believes that she should give everything for the Sua family and her father, even her life. However, in this case, she naturally couldn't tell Charlie. So she could only continue begging in tears, "Sir, although my life is very short, I have hardly begged anyone. Today I beg you once, please give me a good time and stop torturing me, okay?" "Please," Charlie shook his head and said coldly, "I'm sorry, you can't die now." Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.